Call the meeting to order of the Wilmington City Council. I'd like to welcome all those who are with us here this evening and all those who are watching us at home. Thank you for taking an interest in your government. At this time, I'd like to introduce Chaplain Pearson Fields of the Wilmington Fire Department for the invocation and ask that everyone remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance afterwards. Chaplain, welcome.
Let us pray. Almighty and everlasting God, as we come together in this assembly, we ask for your presence and guidance. Lord, grant us the wisdom to discern what is right and just for our city and everyone that calls this place home. May our deliberations be marked by respect, collaboration, and compassion. Lord, may we bless each other. May you bless this time and each member of this council with the courage to act with integrity and humility and to listen with empathy. May their decisions reflect your divine wisdom and lead to the flourishing of all within our community. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Interesting. That's interesting. Okay. All right. We have one presentation this evening, and it's a proclamation naming June 2024 as Pride Month. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Woody Goff, if he will come forward. From the City of Wilmington, North Carolina, proclamation reads, whereas our nation was founded on the principle of equal rights for all people, but the fulfillment of this promise has been long in coming to many Americans. And whereas June 2024 marks the 55th anniversary of the Stonewall riots that gave birth to the Pride celebrations around the world. And whereas LGBTQ plus Pride Month is an essential celebration that provides visibility to the LGBTQ community, offers hope to those still in fear of being their authentic selves, and sends a resounding call to all of who use our voice to eliminate injustice everywhere. And whereas the LGBTQ communities of Wilmington are an integral part of our resilient and vibrant community that contributes to Wilmington's economic, artistic, political, and social justice developments. And whereas the long and ongoing struggle of LGBTQ communities for basic civil and human rights continues to provide inspiration to all those who work against discrimination and oppression. And whereas everyone should be able to live without fear of prejudice, discrimination, violence, and hatred based on race, religion, gender identity, or sexual orientation. And whereas the City of Wilmington remains committed to treating all people with fairness and respect, and whereas the City of Wilmington joins the LGBTQ community in Pride's jubilant expression of visibility, community, and dignity. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Wilmington City Council, on behalf of all residents of the City of Wilmington, does hereby proclaim June 2024 as Pride Month in the City of Wilmington and urges all residents to respect and honor a diverse community and celebrate and build a culture of inclusion and acceptance. Congratulations and thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
you.
For coming. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item of business is a consent agenda. items 1 through 4. Are there any items that any council member would like to hear separately? If not, what are the wishes of this council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Andrews, second by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is our public information segment. 3 speakers have signed up to speak with us this evening. Each speaker will be allotted 5 minutes. Our first speaker is Mr. Derek Anderson, who will be talking about a ceasefire resolution. Mr. Anderson, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Mr.
Good
Mayor,
evening.
Mayor Pro Tem, my name is Derek Anderson, and I was born and raised in Wilmington, North Carolina, with the exception of obligations I had outside the sphere, and I come to speak on the ceasefire resolution. Now, as I understand it, you are being asked to have a resolution calling for a ceasefire on the Gaza, which I think nothing wrong with that. Every citizen has the right to ask for a ceasefire. People who know me know that I'm opposed to that, and I'm gonna give you the reasons why. First, I don't think it represents the whole citizens of Wilmington in its totality. I don't see a use for it, and you're asking a nation that had been attacked to unilaterally disarm. I don't think that's fair. I think people need to know what the issues are and to know what happened to precipitate the war in Gaza. On October the 6th, there was a ceasefire, but it was violated vehemently by Hamas, a terrorist group that came in, raped, pillaged, raped women in front of their husbands, daughters in front of their fathers, and killed innocent children. And they took hostages. No one that I can think of would approve of such behavior, but this group, which took over the Gaza when it was turned over to Israel in 2005, has been a terrorist organization, along with another group called Hezbollah, which is in the north. To issue a ceasefire resolution, I don't think will stand in the face of what's decent. Now, I know there are other cities that have issued such a resolution, but as my grandmother used to say, if everybody's eating manure, are you gonna eat it too? But she didn't use the word manure. So what I'm saying is that we, as a city, need to find out, represent everyone, not just one block, not just one speck, but the whole city in its totality and what everybody feels. Now, obviously we cannot do a referendum on a ceasefire, but I applaud you guys for letting people have their say, coming up and speak different opinions, but to issue a ceasefire is to be unfair to one side when one side would ceasefire and the other side would keep firing on them like they did on October the 7th. That, in my opinion, is not fair. And so I come before the city council tonight to say, please, do not issue such a resolution. It would further divide the citizens. People are confused as it is. And we, people like myself, would be, to put it politely, very offended by such a resolution. I also would like to remind people that there are also hostages being found every day who are dead. And I don't know how many hostages are left living, but I would fathom a guess not many. I see my spectrum works just fine. I see the carnage on TV. I see the bombings. But you got to remember, a terrorist group will use innocents to protect themselves while other people are killed, bomb their own people under hostage themselves. So what we're seeing does not really tell the whole story. I know innocent people are being killed. I know children are being killed, suffering. But we got to take this thing in its totality in that, as I stated earlier, on October the 6th, there was a ceasefire. On October the 7th, that ceasefire was violated terribly by a terrorist group who has no respect for life, no respect for human decency, and no respect for mankind itself. So I come before the City Council. I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I applaud what you guys are doing, letting everyone speak. I'm open to all opinions, but I have mine. Furthermore, I'd like to say, just remember those, everyone who's killed, the innocent Palestinians who were killed by their own people, their own. Nobody mentions that. Israel the bad guy. And remember the hostages. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Ms. Phyllis Cabrera, who will also be speaking to us about a ceasefire resolution.
I'm very nervous, so.
That's okay. You can just calm down. It'll be fine.
Okay.
Just enjoy.
So I'm kind of on the opposite side
Can you
of
can
the
you can
issue.
you just get close to the microphone so we can hear you?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
So I am actually in favor of a ceasefire resolution. I know that a lot of local governments feel like they should not weigh in on this because it's not really a local issue. But in the case of Wilmington, it really is a local issue, just because one of the functions of the City Council is to represent the viewpoint of the citizens. A majority of people in the United States, a large majority, almost 70%, are in favor of a ceasefire. I assume that includes Wilmington. Also, Wilmington is home to the Port of Wilmington that ships explosive ammunitions are its #1 export, Israel being its top destination this year. There's a GE plant here that employs over 3,000 people in Wilmington that produces engines for helicopters for Boeing that are used militarily in all over the world. I personally don't want to be a party to this type of thing. I think that it would be a great statement by this city in favor of justice for oppressed people, especially considering the history of this town, just to make a statement in favor of peace and a ceasefire and the end to the murder of innocent civilians. I guess that's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And the third speaker tonight is Ms. Sena Job. Is Ms. Job here? I hope I pronounced that properly. And she'll also be talking about ceasefire. Welcome, Ms. Job.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Shauna, and I'm a Wilmington resident. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking today to ask the Wilmington City Council to join the 100+ U.S. cities in adopting a permanent ceasefire resolution. I want to start by stressing how this conflict is indeed tied to us here in Wilmington and why this is a city matter. In one of our local news sources, Port City Daily, a researcher found that trade statistics compiled on Wilmington's harbor's port shipments, the harbor which is home not only to the Port of Wilmington, but also the Military Ocean Terminal Sunny Point, show the most exported commodity was explosive ammunition, and the top destination was Israel, and Israel received 70% of the export that came from Wilmington. And as you have heard so many speeches say before this, in addition to being Wilmington business via our port and our people, we are all connected through our tax dollars funding this genocide. Now I would like to get into the last 6 months since folks have been speaking at these city council meetings calling for a ceasefire. Folks have been respectful and have gone about making these requests the right way through these public information periods. We have asked for your bravery and been met with a lot of silence. In these last 6 months, with the inaction from the city council, here are a few changes that have occurred in Palestine. Total deaths since January. In January, the total deaths were below 30,000. Now the total deaths are near 37,000. Infrastructure, specifically hospitals that have been bombed in January, 13 out of the 36 hospitals remained standing and functional. Now there are less than 12 standing, with not one of them being fully functional. And the last statistic, children, in January, 8,500 children were killed and at least 16,000 were injured. Now, at least 15,000 children have been killed, 19,000 have been orphaned, 1,000 have lost one or multiple limbs, and more than 30 have died of malnutrition and dehydration. More recently, in the safe zone of Rafah, at least 66 people were killed, including women and children, in over 4 days of attacks. Hundreds more have been wounded, and more than 600,000 children are still sheltering in tents in Rafah as they are being bombed. Images and videos from these drone strikes in the safe zone of Rafah have shown unimaginable horrors, like children watching their families' tents burn with families still inside, charred bodies, and the most harrowing, beheaded children. With all of these horrors persisting, we are looking to and depending on you all, our elected officials. Biden's red lines for Israel have continually been crossed, making them look like a red carpet for this genocide. One of his red lines was Rafah, yet he still showed support for the Israeli military despite bombing a safe zone. It is clear the federal government is failing to uphold the wants of its people, as 2/3 of voters, regardless of typical party affiliation, support a permanent ceasefire and de-escalation of violence. We need our local government to exert the political pressure it has on the federal government to enforce these red lines and help end this violence we're all tied to. Hope is an active form of resistance, and that is all Palestinians have. I'm going to end with a short poem that was written shortly after the tragedies in Rafah. I don't like to get involved in politics, you say. The beheaded child whispers, me too. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Brings us to our next item of business, which is our public hearings. Item PH1 is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish a dwelling at 712 Red Cross Street is unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. This was also continued from our May 21st, 2024 meeting. So at this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Cottle.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Got a little change up for you this evening. Rachel Lecoe, our Director of Housing and Neighborhood Services, will overview this item for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. 712 Red Cross is a single-family home located in a local historic district. It's approximately 722 square feet, and it's currently vacant. The owners are the heirs of Sally Frazier and the heirs of Granado Frazier. Shown here is an exterior view of the home from Red Cross Street. Just a little history. This case began with a neighbor's complaint as to the condition of the property with an initial inspection conducted in June of 2022. The property was vacant at the time. The case was taken to a housing code hearing in January of 2023. There were no representatives of the family in attendance at that meeting. The order to repair or demolish was issued in February 2023, which expired in April of 2023. Staff has been in contact with the heirs, who are working to clear the title, but have stated they will need to go through the court to proceed. An additional inspection was conducted on April 30th, and again, I drove by this afternoon with no improvements being made since the last inspection. The findings of fact that were issued at the meeting are shown here. This meets the dilapidated standard of the minimum housing code, which means that we would be looking at the demolition ordinance. Shown here are the minimum housing code violations that were outlined in the findings of fact and including in your packet. Just walking you through some photos of the dwelling. You can see here from Red Cross, the exterior, some of the exterior damage. A tree did fall on the house and has continued to cause additional damage inside. As you can see here, some of the ceilings that have fallen and other issues. You can see right through the roof, additional photos there. So staff is recommending the approval of the ordinance to vacate, close, repair, or demolish with the, for 90 days for the order to do the repair or demolish. That concludes my presentation.
Rachel, could you go back to the beginning slide in regards to the time frame and, yes. So the initial inspection was done on 2022. There, you mentioned that they are in the process of trying to resolve the
Estate.
estate. And how many heirs, and has it gone to court yet, or is there a specific court date that has been set for this particular property?
We are not aware of a court date at this time, so.
But you have been in contact with some of the owners, and they have indicated to you that they're trying to clear the title by getting it all into their name?
There are some family disputes, so they have to work through the courts to
I
get that
understand that.
settled.
And so, and their intention, I guess, the group or the family members that are trying to clear the title, is it their intention to come in here and fix the house, or is their intention is to tear or to demolish the house?
I'm not sure. I'd have to find out.
Okay, I'm sure, I don't know if the owners are here or not, but I'll answer that question later. Okay, anybody else?
No, it's unoccupied, is that correct?
Yes, it has been vacant. Mhm.
Okay, and is this the case where the family member came down from like Raleigh or something?
That was a different case that you're
okay.
speaking of recently, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Reinbark?
I noticed from the pictures, I rode by and looked, and pictures verify what I saw. This house is not boarded up.
No, it is not. So with this order, we would do that. We'd go and board it up to secure it.
Tonight will trigger that, because it needs to be secured. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rachel. At this time, I'd like to recognize the homeowner or the property owners, or any of the owners here. Okay. Okay, seeing nobody's here, I will now open the public hearing and ask if anybody in the public wishes to speak on item PH1. Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary or information to your office?
No, sir, I have not.
Okay. And then I will ask the council if y'all have any additional questions before I close the public hearing. Okay. I will now close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council in respect to item PH1. We have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Andrews. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item, which is item PH2, which is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish the dwelling at 1115 South Fifth Avenue as unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. Again, this was continued from our May 21st, 2024 meeting. This time I'd like to recognize the City Manager, Mr. Cottle. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. LaCoe will overview this item as well.
Thank you again. This property is located at 1115 South Fifth Avenue. It is about 2,500 square foot multi-dwelling unit located in the National Register District. The property is vacant and owned by the Macedonia Fire Baptized Holiness Church of God of the Americas Incorporated. Shown here is a view from South Fifth Avenue. Some background on this case: it was initiated by a call from the Wilmington Police Department. They were occupied by unauthorized persons in this unit, residing in the structure. An administrative hearing was held in November of 2022. Members of the church who are here this evening were in attendance of that meeting. The findings of fact and the order found that the dwelling was unfit for human habitation, and the owner was ordered to bring the dwelling into compliance through repair or demolition. The order was issued in December of 2022 and expired in June of 23. The owner did not appeal the finding of fact, but additional time was provided by the Code Enforcement Division Staff has been in contact with pastors and trustees from the church and has attempted to facilitate partnerships with organizations and referrals to city programs, but have been unsuccessful. Findings of fact shown here and included in your packet show that the house, the dwelling unit is dilapidated and would be looking at the repair, not necessarily demolishment. Shown here are the minimum housing code violations that are outlined in the findings of fact and in your packet. And I'm going to walk you through some photos. This site has been secure. From time to time, we are, as we do inspections, we are finding people in there, and we have had to call the police to help with our inspections. You can see here where the windows and doors have been boarded, some of the roof damage, some additional damage to the windows. Interior photos. These are from April 30th. As you will hear from the owners, they have made efforts to clear out the combustible items and other interior items. This is the basement, where you can see some standing water, some roof damage, peeling paint, additional damage to the interior. The house has no working sanitary or kitchen facilities at this time. Additional photos of the interior and some more ceiling damage. So at the end, staff is recommending approval of ordinance. This would give them 180 days to repair or demolish. Again, we're not looking to demolish. This is more of the repair aspect.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
I've got one.
Sir?
Yeah. You mentioned early in your report that you were having groups to help them out or something, and explain that again.
Yeah,
please.
so in a case like this, it's a multi-unit dwelling, so there's potential for it to be a rental property for the church to, or for themselves, or for other nonprofits to potentially partner with, and so just facilitating partnerships, whether it's with Good Shepherd, First Fruit, or some of the other partners in the community, or whether it went through the city of Wilmington, one of our rental rehab or affordable housing programs where they can do the repairs and rent it to low-income folks.
And so you're saying you tried to connect those groups with this group, but they didn't connect?
Correct.
Any reason why?
I'm
To
not
your
sure.
knowledge?
No.
Okay, I'd like to find out. All right, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Rumbar?
I'll hold off until after the public hearing is open.
Okay, very good. Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you. All right, this time I'd like to recognize the property owners. Are they here?
Mr. Mayor,
Can you just bring the microphone up just a little bit so we can, there you go.
that's a little better.
Very good, sir, thank you.
All right, to the chambers. We have been trying to, for, I say at least 6 years, trying to find some funding to get this house fixed. And when she referenced somebody going in there, it was a homeless man that kicked the door in when the police, because there were occasions they told us we need to put up a no trespassing sign, but he never got arrested. That's how you see all the clothes that's in there. And through going there one day at noonday prayer, it was a gentleman sitting on the church steps, and I asked him, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I live right there." I said, "How do you live there?" The man was subleasing for beer and cigarettes. So, it's one of those things where everything has been a dead end. Even when we were meeting with different groups, get numbers from people to, I said, if we can fix the outside of it, we can work on the inside. And every meeting has been unsuccessful. So for a matter of fact, about 4 months ago, we had a meeting saying that we wanted to utilize it as a transition home for people who are coming and trying to get themselves together. They connected us with somebody, and they never called us back. So it's been a tiresome thing having to, for the last 6 years, and having to unfortunately have to drive my wife 3.5 hours one way before her mother passed away. So, you know, but they faithfully worked on doing whatever was necessary to try to get some funding, but we haven't been fortunate enough yet.
Do you have any questions? Mr. Waddell?
Thank you for being here tonight. What's the church's intent with the property? If you know, perfect world, found some funding, would you want to use it? What would be the idea? The reason I'm asking is I think the church is sitting on a valuable piece of property, a valuable asset, should it wish to dispose of it.
Right. We don't want to dispose of it, but we would love to have some money to fix it.
Okay.
Because one time we considered when it was a little livable, because I do a devotional every Monday and Thursday at a drug rehab facility as a transition place for those young men who have spent their year or 2 years in drug rehab and can be trusted to live alone.
So some form of a community outreach program run through the church is kind of you and the church's vision for how that structure would be used.
Is to help those that are less fortunate make the transition to do whatever they need to do, you know, to get where they are. You know, I tell people all the time, if you've never been homeless, you don't know what it feels like to be homeless.
Thank you. I was just curious, the thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Barnett?
Yes, sir. Pastor, what have you done in the last, let's say, 60 days to...
We've cleaned it out. The pictures you see now, you won't see. It's totally different, and we can meet tomorrow morning if you want to and go through it.
So,
we
okay, so no, tell me. I need you to tell me.
We've had someone. We started out before we came here on the 21st. There was a gentleman that was contracted. He had death in his family, had to go out of town. So we ended up having to get somebody else. And the guy finally finished up today, this morning, to cleaning the house out, getting all the stuff. So now you can really see what kind of work really needs to be done to the house.
Okay.
So it's clean now.
And
It's just that some of those things are like the fixtures, bathroom fixtures, those would have to be replaced if we did any kind of work to it.
Okay. I agree with Councilman Waddell. And I went by there today, walked around it, and it is a very important piece of property, you know, and we would hate for the church to lose it, but we cannot afford to have it remain like it is.
Right.
Okay? And so I think what the ordinance is saying is that basically we're going to give you 180 days to fix it. Okay? Is that comfortable with you?
Not really, but I have to deal with what I get.
Okay? Because when you come back, I mean, if we do 180 days, I think the thing that the city wants everybody to understand is that we're not trying to take people's property. Mm-hmm. We don't want to take it. That's not our goal, and we don't. Thank you, Brother Luke. We don't take people's property, but we cannot afford to have it looking like this and representing, you know, you as well as representing the city.
And it's a part of collateral to that building next to it, too.
Right. Okay. All right. So, you know, that's what the resolution is. It's to really put some fire under you guys and say you gotta bring it up to standard. You know, and we want to see results.
Yes,
we
sir.
got to see results.
But everybody we've been referred to has always rejected the intent, because we had a meeting a few months ago, and the lady that was supposed to be there, she said somebody else didn't even know what we was talking about. I'm like, it was useless. You invite me to a meeting, and then you send a substitute, then I don't get any answers.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Spears?
How you doing, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well.
I would have to disagree with you a little bit. You don't have to go along with us. We're asking you to give us a time frame. if you don't think 180 days could help you fulfill what you need to do, ask us for more time. But I need you to be specific about what you're asking for, and I need you to understand that I'm fair, but whatever you ask for, if we decide to do that, if you don't do it within that time frame,
I know.
I'm gonna be like everybody else.
You're going to vote like everybody else.
That's what I'm telling you. So I mean, you know, I'm the least to want to intimidate or pressure you, but I want you to use your words and be very specific, you know, and ask us for what you want so that you can keep your property, so that you know, so you can fulfill whatever it is that you want to do with this property and not have to sell it. Councilman Waddell said it. Yeah, you are probably sitting on something that's very lucrative. But one thing we do know, they don't make more land. You know, and once it's sold, it's sold. You won't get it back. So, I mean, think.
Oh, I thought about it, but whether you all agree with it or not is a different story.
Well, you know,
12 months.
You
And if
think you could,
if nothing happens in 12 months,
you think you can pool the resources? Maybe your parishioners or somebody can come together and.
I'm gonna put all the energy I've put into it for the last 6 years trying to do it. But you know, you can't stick people up and make them give you money. When I get invited to meetings, I'm yet to have a meeting with somebody that I talk to on the phone and says we may have some funding for you to have a conversation with them face to face.
Understood.
So it's like I'm running into a brick wall, but I'm not defeated. I'm gonna still do what I need to do to make it happen because I was sent here to pastor a church and to do the best I can. And if I don't serve them to the best of my capacity, then I'm not doing what I'm called to do.
Well, I understand, and
So,
I'm
12 months.
I'm on your side, despite you saying you're gonna do in 1 year what you couldn't do in 6. But I believe in you. I got the faith of a mustard seed. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now you got to convince 3 more people.
All right. Anybody else needs convincing?
We got some more questions, sir. Mr. Rodmark.
So this house is owned by an LLC. This is not any one individual person, it's an LLC.
It's the church.
Okay,
it
the
belongs
church.
to the church organization, INC.
Okay. How did this property get into the condition that it's in?
It was no longer occupied. We had a lady renting it. They broke it off into a duplex.
Pardon me?
It was broken off into a duplex.
Okay.
And there was a lady living in it one time, and a gentleman approached me about some illegal activity she was doing from it, so I asked him to do evict her. And nobody else rented it after that.
Okay, so then it
It started out originally as a parsonage. When they bought it, there's a church that doesn't exist anymore that came as a package deal. And so by not being occupied, and the gentleman that was breaking in and out, children throwing bricks on the weekend, because we find children on the weekend using the rails on the church as skateboards, you know, because there's no other place got rails that they can slide.
Okay. All right, so it fell into disrepair because there was nobody in it and the church quit taking care of it.
No, there was some work done to it, but because of lack of occupancy, you know, it's just like anything, just like us. You stop breathing, a lot of things gonna go wrong.
Okay. In other words, you didn't have a tenant paying any money.
Right.
Okay,
And
so
that was the building just because it wasn't being used.
Okay. So the meetings that you say that you have been invited to are the ones that our staff have, the connections that our staff have tried to connect you and your church with, and you've just, what are you asking for? When you get, what are you looking for from any or all of these groups?
Some money.
How much money?
It's an estimate about $200,000.
Okay. and you've never had anybody sit down, you've never gotten to the point at any of those meetings. In other words, they just, when you tell them $200,000, they show you the door?
Never was even conversation because the people that I set up the meeting with didn't show up. Somebody else showed up.
Well, I think it would probably have been prudent for you to call back over to the staff and say, this is what's happening, because they really want to help.
I did talk to Mr. Bryant, Renner, and told him that we had a meeting at the church, and the lady that said she would be there didn't show up. So they referred us to somebody else. And then when I called them, they said that they were going to call me back. If one of you all called me, they did too.
Okay. So you just told Councilman Spears you need 12 months?
Yes, sir.
And at the end of that 12 months, if it still is in the same condition, what do you think we should do?
Pray a little harder.
Pardon me, sir?
Pray a little harder.
Pray a lot?
Yes, sir. Pray a little harder. Hopefully we'll have it all done, sir.
Hopefully is not a plan.
Yeah, we're going to work at it. We're going to work on it. And I'm not just sitting here trying to snowball you.
Well, one of the things that wouldn't cost you a whole lot of money would be to get it cleaned out.
Right. It's cleaned out.
Those pictures.
She showed you pictures that Mr. Register took when the police was riding by and a homeless man kicked the door in. He went through on that particular day and took those pictures.
Gotcha. So it doesn't look like that now?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, the one thing that, and everybody up here has got their heart in the right place, I promise you, but the one thing that never gets mentioned up here is the people that live in the neighborhood that surrounds it. It's not fair to them to have that, and it is an eyesore. It's an eyesore. It's a safety hazard. So those are the things that we have to consider, and we will pray harder. But anyway, those are my comments.
I have a picture of what it looks like now.
Oh, sir, I believe you. I mean, I don't think you'd stand up there and tell me it was clean if it
No,
wasn't.
I don't have time for games because life.
Generally, the reason I ask that, generally, when we have these type of hearings, in most cases, the pictures that we see were taken this morning or yesterday or whatever, very, very recent pictures. In your case, that's not the case.
No,
So I trust what you say.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
With the 180 days, the 180 days is like a checkpoint, okay? And I'm a pastor, and I know, like, church folks, and I know church folks. I know us. I'm not saying that you have to do it in 180 days, but I would like to see I'd like to see some kind of progress, okay, in, let's say, 180 days, or let's say 9 months, okay, rather than waiting a whole year to come back and do this. I'd like to maybe see some progress, actually in 180 days, because therefore, if you come back to me in 180 days and you say nothing's happening, then there's either you drop the ball or we drop the ball. Right. Because I think we're in a position where we kind of know some folks who may be willing to look at this project and say, this might be a great spot for a rehabilitation center or something like that. Right. But I don't want to give you a whole year to play with that.
Oh no, I'm
okay.
not gonna play with
I'd like to hear something come back and show us some more pictures, something in writing. Here's my plan. This is what we've done so far. These are the people we've talked to. Because I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see it sooner than later. Okay.
I got a question for Rachel. Rachel, on Mr. Frazier for a second. Would this property, and I don't even know if they approached you in this respect, would this property qualify for rental rehab under our CDBG funding?
So our rental rehab program does have a limit of $200,000 per unit. So that would, you said it's a multifamily, so it depend on how many units were in there. So there is a possibility. One of the challenges, as was mentioned, this is part of the collateral of the church. And so looking at what their total debt would be a challenge from a housing program perspective. We'd have to see what their total debt is to see if the loan to value would work, so.
Gotcha. Are there any other programs that we have under our umbrella in the city that they may be able to qualify for, they may be able to secure?
Yeah, potentially. The first step would be to get a contractor in to get an idea of the costs, right? The numbers that were presented to you are the code enforcement costs, which is if they were doing it with no labor, and a lot of the expenses are going to be lower than if they hired a contractor. So coming in, and again, those damages, there may be more damages over time, and so we'd want to see that full scope to know what the actual project would be, but there are potentially other projects, but it would really depend on the overall intent of the project. If they were going to do the transitional, whatever it may be, that would depend on what program they would qualify, and then the overall debt on the project. We don't want to put more debt on top of what they already have.
So once we start the process, it would have to be totally finished?
Yep.
Instead of them trying to raise enough money to secure, to fix the roof, the windows, so you stop the water from coming in to the property, and of course, eventually this thing is going to deteriorate to the point where it will collapse on itself, based on the photographs that you've shown me, or shown us here tonight. So that's one of that's an option that I guess Pastor Frazier and his congregation could possibly look at.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate
I have
that. Mr. Ridenbrook, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if you've been all over it or whatever, are the bones of this building good? I mean, since 2022, it's probably been exposed to, interior's been exposed to weather and what have you?
I cannot speak to that. I would recommend a structural engineer go in and take
Pardon?
a look. I would recommend a structural engineer go in and take a look. Like, as you said, I'm not sure what type of damage has been done with the exposed, so I can't speak to that.
Thank you.
Rachel, okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Waddell.
So on the 100, I always mess this up, but you mentioned this was repaired, not demolished, was the recommendation, but I guess because it was in decent repair. So on the 181st day, let's just say worst case scenario, nothing's been done. What happens?
We could put the project out, well, we would come before you to talk about that, but what we would be able to do is put the project out to bid, do the repairs, and put a lien on the property.
Right. So then they would just have a lien. Is the property owned outright?
Say again?
Is the property owned outright, or is there a mortgage on this property?
There's a mortgage on it.
There is a mortgage on the property?
It's tied to the mortgage of the church.
Okay. Is that adjoining this property, or is it?
It's all one property.
It's all one.
Oh, okay, understood.
You have to bring somebody in, divide it up. You would have to have somebody come in to sever the ties between the two properties. It's all one property. It was purchased as one property. It was never purchased as two individual properties, because the old church was, when they bought the old church, before they tore it down, all that came together.
And back to Rachel, sorry. What's the extent of the work we do on something like this? We were to come in and do it, how does that work? Have we done that recently and ever?
I would have to look into that.
just
But it would be to get it to minimum housing code. And
Okay.
so that can be different than what somebody may want to rent or what the market would be. So
We'd get it to code.
Yeah, we'd get it to code.
Okay. Doors, windows, roof, electrical,
Safety.
probably not flooring and aesthetics and
Flooring if it needed it, if there
Right.
were holes in it, but not necessarily,
all
different.
new floors. All right. Thank you. But ultimately, they end up with a lien on the property for the amount of work that we
Functioning
end up doing.
kitchens, bathrooms, sanitary, all that.
Thank you.
Okay. Whew. Well, yeah. Unless you want to say some more things,
No,
Pastor
I don't.
Frazier. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I'm inclined to go with what Mayor Pro Tem said, you know, go the 180 days and see where they are.
Well, let's go ahead and, we have to have a public hearing, open the public hearing, and then we'll close that, and then we'll take some action, okay? All right, at this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing and ask for anybody in the public wishes to speak on item PH2, if they'll please come forward, state their name for the record, and speak. Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary?
No, sir, I have not.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the council if there are any additional questions or commentary before I close the public hearing, and then we take action. Is there anything else anybody wants to say? Or
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a substitute motion granting them 365 days to make the repairs with an update in 180 days.
Okay. So let's do this. I'm gonna close the public hearing. Ask for the wishes of council. Councilmember Spears has just come forward with a motion to give the church the 365 days reprieve to go ahead and start work. And we will check with you in 180 days. In 180 days, you come forward with some sort of a report to determine, has there been any progress? What kind of progress has been made? Have any repairs been done to the property? So we understand where you are in the process. Because at 180 days, it would give us, I think all of us, a lot of consternation and concern that nothing has been done. And I know that you're going to work very hard with your congregation to try to fix the property or secure some kind of funding to make the repairs necessary so that we don't take the final action, which ultimately would go to some sort of, hopefully not a demolition of some sort. But
I'll second that.
okay, so we have a motion, Councilmember Spears, for 365 days, checking up in 180 days with from Rachel and her staff, and we have a second to that.
Well, I have a question.
Pro Tem. Yes, sir.
At the end of the 180 days, if it's just like it is now, we still give another 180 days?
No.
No, some kind of progress needs to be made within that 180-day period, and I believe, Pastor Frazier, I think what we're trying to do here is give you the time necessary to make the repairs, but also with a clear understanding that some repairs, some work is going to be done on that property within the next 6 months. So,
A significant
and
amount
if
of
no repairs or nothing has been done, then this group will then have to take an action of some sort at that point in time.
Could I defer to staff on the legitimacy of that, if it's actually feasible?
I think if you go to the 365, you're putting a deadline of 365 on there. If you have something that you expect to have done at 180 days, then you probably need to enumerate that. Otherwise, I believe they will automatically get the 365-day extension.
So we have to enumerate what those things would be: securing of the roof, the securing of the windows and the doors and stuff of that nature. Make sure that I'll leave that up, Ms. Spears, as to what you feel would be appropriate in respect to the itemized things that you would like to see done or we would like to see done.
Pastor Frazier wants to speak again, and I don't want to overstep my boundaries to say if
Pastor
he can.
Frazier, come on up here. There, thank you, sir.
I won't be found in contempt.
Thank you so much again. I have a young lady here, Ms. Koch, who has been diligently researching funding for that. So we've just not been spending time trying to snowball nobody. But she's right here to, if it's all right with you all, that she share with you what she's done.
I just wanted to say we weren't just sitting around and not doing anything. From the first beginning, we talked about demolishing it. And we had gotten 2 people, I can give you the dates, but I left my papers back there, to tell us how much it would cost, from $40,000 to $50,000. We didn't have that kind of money. We still have a mortgage on our church. And the second thing is they told us that it's one property. We would have to get it cut in half to sell it, because people have asked to buy it. And the third thing, I look for grants, and someone would pass the date when I look for black churches, and they wanted specifically black churches. This church was Episcopalian church that was built in 1922, so it was over 100 years old. And I went to the Historical Society, and in April, I think it is, they made it a historical landmark because of the slate roof, and it was over 100 years old. Now, I saw that building a few years back, visiting a pastor that lived there, and it had ornate wood, but I hadn't been in it since then, so I'm just getting back to town permanently, so I'm helping out. And then also I talked to First Fruits, because I went to an open house they had, and one of the things that they had a shortage on is the women that are trafficking, they have to leave and go to housing. They're having trouble finding reasonable housing for them. So I present to her the problem we're having with our building, and I say, if we fix it, would it be a place that you could use for transitional, like 3 or 4 months, so they wouldn't have to be running around, and you could put other women in their apartments that's on the, you know, it's very secure because they're keeping them protected. And she said that would be of much help. But we couldn't go any further because we had to clean it out. We have to find out how much it takes to fix it. And now this is historical landmark. They give us a list of people that we can contact to help us. And I'm in contact with the salvage company because I'm near there. But they close today and tomorrow. I want to show them the pictures of the inside that we got. And also, I took an aerial picture of the slate roof. And I had talked to the people in the state, and he said, don't tear that house down. He said, I know that house. Their roof is not that bad. And so I went to the Historical Society and mentioned it, and he told me they didn't have any money, so I just left it like that. Because I took a class with them, and I heard they have money, but I didn't say any more. Because
Mr. Mayor.
And so it was made a historical landmark in April.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Mr.
we've been
Mr.
working
Spears.
on it.
Mr. Spears has a question.
I hate to
Spears.
interrupt, but and I don't want to come across as we need you to agree that in 180 days there will be a significant amount of work to be done on this property, and I'm not downplaying.
I got you, Mr. Spears, but we can't agree with something we have no money now and no way of knowing how much it's going to cost. But if we get some money and we can start with something like the roof, we will do it. It's not that we don't want to do it. You have to get the, you have to find the money.
You're actually shooting yourself in the foot by saying that, because you're going to make us go backwards.
Okay, I'm not trying to go backwards.
Because Pastor Frazier said that
days. Yeah.
coming out of here, he's going to invest sweat equity. So even if you don't have the money from another source, if you use what you have from your church, or you just start to take some amount of money to make some repairs, then we can do this for you for an extended period of time. But if you're saying no,
I didn't say no.
what
I'm saying that we have to.
you
find
kind of just said no. You're taking us the long way around
What
the
I
block.
was trying to say is, since it's a historical landmark, we have to use specific people to make sure we fix it correctly. And they gave us a list of people to contact. I didn't say we couldn't do it. We haven't done it because we had to wait until it was cleaned up so we could let the people come in and see how much it costs and what needs to be done. That's all I'm saying. We weren't sitting there just waiting to come to court. That's what I was trying to tell you.
I understand, but I'm still asking you in
180 days, I wasn't fighting that.
something significant where you can say the windows will be replaced, and maybe don't include the roof in the 180 days, because they're putting that on me to say what in the 180 days you're gonna have done. So if it's windows, if it's the roof may need to be the last thing, but if the roof is the easiest thing, say that. But
Yeah, I have to find out if it's easy.
We're gonna make an
Yeah.
effort to do all of what
Yeah.
needs to be done, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
All right.
We're gonna do that.
all right,
I
I
didn't
just
say we weren't.
I mean,
I didn't want you to feel that we weren't doing anything. That's the
no,
only reason I spoke.
we don't even feel that. We moved past that, and I was pretty optimistic for you, but now you kind of
I'm still-
bringing me down a little bit.
But
And I
don't
wanna
get down.
help you.
Don't get down. We in
Okay.
it for the fight,
Okay. Well,
okay?
yeah.
We're gonna
Just
do what we have to
let's
do.
just
Yeah.
kind of go forward and say and let's work really hard to get this done.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Rattenbar?
There's just one other thing that's a possibility. You may not like it, but you could petition the property, like Mrs. Coke just said, it's like splitting it off, get the bank's permission to do that, sell it, and then reduce your mortgage your outstanding mortgage that you have at the bank. I mean, you've bettered yourself from a financial standpoint. You've gotten rid of this property that's a problem, and I mean, that's just another option. So thought I'd throw that out.
Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Mr. Spears said that, you know, do the roof last if that's the hardest thing to do. I want you to do the thing that's going to preserve the property the most. And so if the roof needs to be replaced, that's probably the most important thing that you need to do to preserve the rest of the property. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If we have any more questions, we'll bring you back. Mr. Manager, you have something to say?
Mr. Mayor, excuse me. Go ahead. I think if you're interested in going to a 365-day window, I think it would be good for you to have an interim report at 180 days. I'm not sure how that works out legally, and I may be driving the city attorney out of the frame right now. But perhaps you could do something as simple as requiring that at the end of 180 days that the building be considered to be weather tight at that point, which would mean roof, at least windows covered, those kinds of things. But I don't know how that plays into the legality of what happens if they don't do that within 180 days. You've still got an ordinance that says they get 365. So,
Madam Counselor?
So what I would recommend to try and get you to where you're trying to go is to say 180 days, which is currently in the ordinance, but then add a section to say that if substantial progress has been made, that council will approve another 180 days. And so right now, the 180 days also triggers securing the property and allowing us to make sure that it stays that way for right now. And then they would have to come back at 180 days to give that progress report, with the understanding that if council feels that if significant progress has been made, however you decide significant will be, that you'll agree to grant them another 180 days. But to make the first deadline 180 days so that you don't hamstring yourselves if nothing has been done. Because if it does read 365, then they'll be entitled to the full 365. And so that would be my suggestion to make it cleaner, and we could just add a section in there that says that if significant progress has been made, that they'll be granted another 180 days to complete the repairs.
Ms. Spears?
I don't want to do that, Mayor.
Okay.
I want to give them 365. We can go out and check in 180, and then if nothing's done in 180, which I'm hoping something is done in 180 days, and then when the 365 deadline expires, then you know what we'll do then if nothing has occurred.
Okay.
That's as fair as I can be.
Okay,
Vince, again, you got to convince some other folks to be on board with that.
okay, so help me understand the motion. Are you moving, you still want to do 365 days, but what I'm hearing the attorney say is that we actually are giving them 365 days, but we're putting in this window that says you've got to come and show us some work in 180 days. Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah,
maybe.
But then if you want to hear that, then she's suggesting that we just go with 180 days.
So what I was suggesting was, instead of saying 365, because right now the ordinance reads that you'll have 180 days. If Mr. Spears is moving to say 365 days instead of 180, so that would give them the right to have up to 365 days out the gate. And then if you wanted to change that at some point, we'd have to go back, we'd have to do a whole new ordinance and all of that, which we could certainly do, but there's not really a mechanism to do that. And so what I was suggesting was that, or a clean mechanism to do that. What I was suggesting was to say it's 180 days, to require them to come back at that time before the inspector takes any action, and then to tell them that, to add a section that'll say that they'll get another 180 days if significant progress has been made. And so that was my suggestion, as opposed to saying 365.
Meredith, it's my understanding that the 365, if they come back in 180 days and nothing has been done, this automatically goes to 365 no matter what?
Yes, sir.
I have a concern about that. I mean, I don't have a problem in the 180, and if any kind of work has been done that we think is substantial in nature, I'm willing to give them the additional time frame needed to do whatever they need to do, and even beyond that if it's, systematic. But I don't think I can just go 365 and give them carte blanche, and then in 6 months they come forward and nothing has been done. Because my concern is this has been going on since 2021, I believe, was the number. So it's been a considerable amount of time here. And I know they are struggling with getting some financing. Hopefully, Rachel, if we have any programs that you can share with the pastor and the congregation here to help them in obtaining that, we'll do whatever we can on this end. But I think that 180 gives you some time frame as to something needs to be done, whether, some people need to come together and try to secure it and do that. Mr. Reinbart?
This will be the same group up here when it all comes back. It's not like it's going to be new faces. And we'll certainly remember what we're doing. I think that the 180 and what the city manager said, it being weather tight, that doesn't mean, weather tight is exactly what it says it is, keeping the elements out. At that point, 180 days, I'd be the first to make the motion to give them another 180. I would.
Well, we need a substitute motion because Mrs. Spears' motion right now on the floor is 365. So if we're okay with that, we can vote on it? Or if there's a substitute motion to go 180 and...
Well, I first have to withdraw my second, because if I withdraw my second...
Vote on the motion that's on the floor, and if it doesn't pass, then you just go back to the original motion. Oh, okay, well.
So that means somebody else will have to second it for it to even be considered. Now I would offer a substitute motion that we offer the church 180 days, and they'll come back and report to us, and if progress has been made, then we will extend it to another 180 days.
Make the motion.
Make that motion.
We have a second to that motion. We have a second, Councilmember Joyner. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'll draft an additional, if this passes, then I'll draft an additional section that'll state that there'll be another 180 days given if council's satisfied that significant progress has been made.
Okay, Ms. Reinbart?
Excuse me. The one thing that's kind of a little side twist to this falls under historic district overlay or historic district, and we all know that presents its own set of issues. It's not like it's sitting out there, all they got to do is put a tarp over it and just call it weather tight, because the HD ordinances are more stringent than they would be otherwise. So have at it and good luck, and stay in touch with Ms. LeCaux. If you're running into brick walls, call her, tell her, and see if there's anything we can do to move that along. But we really want you to have success. We'll pray harder.
That's probably why you would need a year, because you can't just go and slap paint on the wall and just make improvements, because you have to fit into a guideline.
Okay.
And they have no money at the moment, so, but, okay.
Okay. All right, all ready to vote? All right, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilman Reinbart, second by Councilman Waddell. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Okay. Good luck. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Next item of business is our ordinances. These are first reading only. All of these 01A, 01B, 01C, 01D are all, and 02 are all pertaining to the budget. This is our first reading only. There will be a second reading the second meeting in June that we have, which I believe is on the 18th. So our first item is item 01A, which is an ordinance making appropriations to the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024. We'll take each one of these separately.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. And I'll ask Councilor if they have any further questions.
Mr. Mayor, if you would, excuse me, if you would indulge us, Ms. Mortel does have a brief presentation
Okay.
to go over some of the changes that we have made and some of the changes that you requested. And as she makes her way to the podium, we laid in front of each of your places some information that you had requested at the close of the budget workshop, but we failed to include it in the memorandum. And this was a comparison of tax rates across the top 14 municipalities within the state.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I have a really brief presentation, and I just want to remind you that we had 4 work sessions, kind of work through the budget. We had the public hearing, and some of these adjustments were based on some of council's input. The first one is the HUD entitlement funding. We finally got the entitlement just after the recommended budget. It changed by $175,000. We had to reduce it by $175,000. And in order to, or that allows us to fund, some of that money goes to the CBDG admin, and to make that whole, we're losing about $30,000 of that. And so to make that fund whole, we're going to be shifting some of the funding that we have being transferred from the general fund over to CBDG admin, shifting from gap financing to the admin fund instead to make it whole. We have some agency adjustments. We have the Council of Government, New Hanover County. Those came after the recommended budget. Council suggested that we increase Good Shepherd to $24,000, and we have done that. And in all total, it's about $40,000, and we're shifting that from the sundry miscellaneous. Safe Light, we had an administrative error where we funded both the transfer from the general fund and interest in the project. The project had enough interest for 1 year, so we didn't have to have the transfer from the general fund. And so we reduced the transfer from the general fund, and we also reduced it from the fund balance because it's one time. And so when we did that, the project really only increased by 1.3%, so it really essentially remained flat. And then lastly, we have the motor vehicle tax. Right now we have it at $5, and that is for general purposes, and we're going to be increasing it to $25, and the $20 is for the neighborhood traffic calming program, and it brings in about $1.8 million. And so now your budget with the ordinances in front of you is just under $300 million. And that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions, staff? Okay, Mr. Waddell?
The motor, go back, if you would, Laura, go back to the motor vehicle tax. I know you referenced earlier, and I've heard this referenced a few times, that we have multiple work sessions throughout the year to hone in the budget, and I did bring a fairly robust proposal in our last work session. That was primarily due to actually can't really get the line item budget until we get closer to the last iteration, and so you were able to provide me with that line item, and I was able to pull that proposal, and I'll go over some of those. But that motor vehicle tax, I mean, this $25, taking it from, originally the proposal in the work sessions was to take it from 5 to 15. My proposal took it from 5 to 25, but to generate that additional $1.8 in revenue, my proposal for this was contingent on eliminating the new program, the neighborhood traffic calming program, and instead dedicating that $1.8 million, whatever that number is, to transportation-related capital improvements, which we are allowed to do. I know there was not consensus on a lot of the proposals that I brought forward at the last work session, but I don't remember a consensus saying, yeah, we're just going to jack it up to 25 and put all of that in the, I mean, I know we're putting $450 in the general fund, but we're still just creating a new program. Was that part of the discussion in the work session? Did I miss that at some point?
We thought, and we've misread before, but we thought we had consensus on the going straight to the 25. You'll recall, as you mentioned, that it was going to propose to go from 5 to 15 and then 15 to 25. And then council mentioned just going in 2 steps. And then we thought that there was consensus following the budget workshop that was held in late May. But if we were incorrect, we certainly can scale that back to the 2-step and can do that very easily this evening.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have no idea if there's consensus. I think we'll flush that out here in a second. But my proposal is something I still would like to bring forward, and I'm not. I think the neighborhood traffic calming program is a worthwhile endeavor, and I would support it in the future when we're not looking at a 7% tax increase. But to me, the more important items at the moment are the capital improvements, because there are many. So I would still advocate to this council to take the city levy to $25 and utilize that entirety of that fund to go to the general fund or go to capital improvements that are transportation related. I have some other items to discuss, but that's one I think it is important. That's a large chunk into that proposed tax increase.
Tony, the 1.8 million for the neighborhood traffic calming, council at its discretion can use it toward capital projects, bigger projects, or it could come back and we get calls all the time in neighborhoods about traffic, speeding of traffic, where they want chicanes or what have you to calm the traffic down. A lot of people are cutting through all these neighborhoods to get to where they're going. A lot of people are doing that all the time. We could make that decision at that point in time.
Yes, sir. As long as you're using the proceeds for transportation-related expenses, you certainly may do that. I would remind you that this particular proposal that staff put forward included 2 staff positions that would be associated with that neighborhood traffic management program, and we'd just like clarification to make sure that those positions would be eliminated as well, or they would be retained, whichever.
Well, I guess on the positions, it was my understanding at the meeting that we were going to be trying to get a lot more grants, correct?
Yes, sir.
And to get those grants, you need a grant writer, correct?
We needed someone to oversee the program, yes, sir.
Right? So if you can't get the grants without a grant writer, I guess you could put it back to staff, but I understand the complex or the capacity issues that we're dealing with there. So if we took this and went all the way to the CIP, we're basically going to eliminate those 2 positions so that we're not going to be able to get the grants. I just want to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want folks to come back and think, well, we're going to get grant writers or we're going to go after the grants, but you're specifically telling us that you need the money to get the grants.
Yes, sir. We have limited capacity to be able to do that right now. Very limited capacity.
But let me go back. If you apply this to the CIP and you came back later at some point in time and you says we want to carve that out, the 1.8, to some traffic calming where you can hire the people, we can do that.
Yes, sir. And in fact, when and again, we apologize if we misread consensus, but when we took this number up, we just rolled the revenue into the capital so that that's where it would go. So you would be able to use it for transportation-related purposes.
Okay, so that would cover that if we wanted to.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mrs. Spears and then I think whoever.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of save this for the end, like a magic trick. But I think we need another work session, to be honest. This all kind of happened in a vacuum, and there was not a consensus. And there are other things that I found that I don't think we've given a consensus on. And I also believe we've had 4 meetings where the budget was discussed. But as Luke just said, we didn't get a line item budget until this very last work session, right? Right. So, I mean, there was a meeting in November where Luke Luke and Margaret were still, not Luke and Margaret, Luke was here, but where Neil and Margaret were still here. David and Celeste weren't even sworn in yet. And then we had a meeting in January asking what we thought the budget should look like. And then we had another meeting, and then we had the last meeting. And there wasn't much conversation about what was needed and which direction we were actually going in. You know, David has had questions, Luke has had questions, and he had some alternative stuff that I didn't really like. But we haven't. This is happening too fast. This is not happening, and this is my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong. This hadn't gone in the direction of the Wilmington City Council. This has gone in the direction of staff. Because we're just starting to hear feedback from the citizens. And I mean, I'm not gonna. Maybe I am letting the cat out the bag, but you got some people that are gonna vote against the budget. So maybe we just need another work session, so we can come back and finalize it and pass a budget.
Mr. Rodmore.
We can ponder.
Mr. Waddell.
Yeah, I don't know about a work session. We've got till midnight, right? Council rules. I'm open to whatever council wants to do from that standpoint. But in all seriousness, how much is that grant writer, do we anticipate that grant writer costing?
My recollection is that the two positions were something on the order of $250,000.
The two positions were not two grant writers. There was one grant writer and then
It was
one.
a grant writer and an engineer, yes, sir.
Okay. And then, and that was $250,000, is that what you said?
Laura, can you help me?
Yeah, we have, sorry, we have 1.5 million going over to the CIP. The rest of it is those two positions. It's almost 1.6. There's some change in there.
So that, okay. 1.6 going to the CIP, and okay. And then how long to stand up that program?
Probably anywhere between 3 and 6 months to be able to hire folks and get folks in the door and oriented.
Trained up and granted, right? All right, so we got half a year before we stand that program up.
Yes, sir.
All right. I mean, I've got some other questions. You all know this. It's not your first budget with me. That I can hang tight because a couple of them are capital related, and so I'm gonna hold tight. Thank you.
Mr. Barnett.
Yeah. I thought there was general consensus to move from 5 to 25. Okay, so I mean, in that meeting, that's what I thought. And the other thing is, we have been working on the budget. It's not like the first time it's come to us, and I appreciate the staff's work and appreciate them looking at the budget whole, you know, not just all of a sudden showing up and, hey, let's change this and change that. So that was just some of the things that I wanted to say just right off the bat, that I do appreciate the work of the staff. And the other thing as relates to the grant writer, and I'm glad you clarified that 1.6 million will be going toward the capital improvement, and just the rest will be going to the grant writer and the other person that we're hiring. In order to get money, you've got to have the staff. You've got to have the person who knows how to write the grants, go out and fill for them. That's probably one of the major issues that this church is having that we just talked about earlier. You know, they don't have the people that know how to go and find the resources or find the money that's out there. So we got to do that. The other thing is, as we look at this budget, we're losing a number of people, staff-wise. You know, we're losing a number of folks. People are leaving here to work in another city for a $2 or $1 an hour raise. You know, so we've got to remember that that's part of what's in the budget that is very important. So I appreciate the work of the staff, and I'm in favor of the budget, where it is.
Okay.
I brought this up at the last workshop, and I know I don't want to beat a dead horse with it, but we are going to have more sales tax revenue. I mean, it's kind of it's like kissing your sister. You raise your taxes and you get rewarded for it from a sales tax standpoint. And I don't know what the county's going to do. I think they're probably going to stay neutral, I hope. But that's not found money, but that's additional revenue. And I'd like to go on record tonight saying I'd like to see a report when it starts coming in. I know it's always paid in arrearage, but I'd like to see what the difference is in this coming fiscal year versus the year that we're operating under.
Just for clarification purposes, when we make these changes, you don't see them until 10 months. So it will be next May before you see those changes with the percentage. So we can get you the change at
Well,
that point.
I expect to be here 10 months from now, so I'd like to see it. My point is that I don't see that money plugged in anywhere
You don't.
because you don't know what it's going to be.
We don't know what it would be, and it would only be 2 months out of the year. That increase, only 2 months.
Well, damn, we can use it in 25, 26 then.
There you go.
Just kidding.
Yeah, my comment wasn't a knock on staff and the work that they do, and my apologies if it was taken that way. I just, it seems somewhat hasty, and you know, there are some council members who are giving the impression that they've gone over the entire budget. I don't believe it. There's some things in here that you may not know about, and once we pull the trigger, a lot of folks are going to come out about it, and we're going to find out about it down the road, and then what? So what's the difference in one more work session to really be able to go over? And there have been other instances where I've asked you all to just take one more look at it, and you haven't. And then those same issues come back around, and then we're in a frenzy about it. One more work session to look it over and say, okay, yep, I'm on board with this. I've seen this. I haven't. Oh, wait, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know we were going in that direction. Let's do this with this money or not. But, you know, $25 per license plate for, and we don't know what the county's going to do. We don't even know what we're going to. So $25 per license plate, and what does the county get from that? Anything?
No,
Nothing?
sir.
That's just Wilmington. Are we sure about that? So who's going to collect the money? Wilmington? The Department of
The
Transportation?
Department of Transportation, and then they pay it to us.
It
Oh,
goes
okay.
to the county and then to us.
It
yes.
goes to the county and then comes to us?
Yeah,
And the county's not going
I believe.
to, the county's not going to
It comes right
touch
to us.
any of
Sorry,
it?
I was incorrect. It comes right to us.
Come straight to us?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just asking one more time to make sure we get it right. It's the least we can do. Because if we don't know, and maybe you guys have, and lady, have gone over everything, but I don't believe it. I mean, you've had questions up until, I don't know, I didn't really check my email a lot today, but yesterday, we've had discussions. So it's no way in 24 hours the inquiries we had about this budget have gone away.
Mr. Wardell.
The budget wouldn't get ratified tonight anyway. It's first reading. So if there's specific questions, I still have some, and I intend to ask them tonight, kind of like a budget workshop, and it seems like you maybe have some specific items that you have questions about. Certainly not telling you what to do, but I would advocate that you bring them forward this evening, if we don't get somewhere and we think it's a reason to have a budget work session in between tonight and the ultimate, the second vote on the budget, then we'll do it. I do have a couple more clarifying questions. I had the removal of the dedicated 1 cent for affordable housing, which to my math would reallocate $2.241 back to the general fund. And I had a $9 million surplus shown in the program, and my proposal was that if there was specific gap financing opportunities that would arise outside of that $9 million surplus, then they may or may not be able to come to us for funding via the fund balance. There was significant discussion about how much surplus was the city of Wilmington's actual money. For my clarification, was it 6.4? Do you remember?
I do remember the 6.4 million.
6.4. So there's a $6.4 million surplus in the affordable housing fund that we currently dedicate 1 cent towards in our tax rate. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Question. May I?
Yes, sir.
If between the first reading and the second reading there were changes made, does that nullify the approval on the first reading? It doesn't? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm just going to, I'll step in here a little bit. I do appreciate everybody's commentary. Luke, I appreciate you bringing forward some recommendations that you brought before the entire council at the work session. And fortunately, unfortunately, some of it went through, some of it, most of it did not. I mean, I appreciate people thinking about this. This is a pretty serious budget. But I also will say this, that I think I'm right in saying this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager. The majority of this increase is going to CIP, capital improvement projects, and to salaries, correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to make certain that, and I've always understood that from the get-go, that the concern has always been that we have lost a lot of folks to other agencies, police, fire. We've lost, I know, a lot of people in public works. In fact, in one of the public works departments, which I believe is the resurfacing, we only have 3 people. I think at one time there were 8 there. So we've lost people there. And one of the things that we as a council have done over the last couple of years through our HR department, when Al Ragland was here, was the compression issues, where we were losing, where we think when you got on first time, we made a pretty significant adjustment for pay because the police and fire were bleeding. We were losing them to other agencies in the surrounding area, Riceville Beach, Carolina Beach, UNCW. And we made those adjustments. And what we hopefully promised ourselves was we would never get that far behind. And I think to your credit, Mr. Manager, you've been cognizant of the fact that if we don't do it, we will get further behind and we will start losing people. And I've seen that happen. Inflation has been with us for quite some time, and we've seen that ripple through the entire organization, not only at the city, but at the county, at the state, on a lot of capital improvement projects, and even with salaries. We've seen that. I think the other thing is that, from my point of view, and I've sat here a long time, this city was incorporated in 1739. It's one of the oldest cities in America. We've got a lot of aging infrastructure. But what really hit me the worst about this whole CIP, if you looked out our window and you looked when that bridge closed and you looked at the traffic that comes into this city just from the west, from Brunswick County, which, by the way, is one of the fastest growing counties in the state, and understanding that those people that live in Brunswick County that work here don't pay property taxes here, but they do use our services. They do drive on our roads. They do use our police and fire when they get in an accident. And we have to, as any city would, help them if there is an issue. That's not even including the traffic that's coming in from the north, from Hampstead, and from I-140. Or 40, when you come in the morning, if you're going west, you can see it. We have over 50,000 cars a day that are coming into the city that are not residents of the city because the majority of the jobs are in the incorporated city limits. So we have an aging infrastructure. One of the things that we've seen in all of our surveys from our citizens is roads, 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 and the condition of roads. And I know at one time in 2018 when we were trying to get ahead of this, and Florence hit with 103 inches of rain, which by the way is a national record, our roads were literally deteriorating under it. But we couldn't get to it because of the fact is we were trying to fix all of the issues that we were dealing with in the aftermath of Florence, which delayed those actions. And I know that we have put over about $5 million in resurfacing, which is paying dividends. You can see it around our neighborhoods where people were begging us to fix their roads. And so we have gotten ahead of this. It's not easy to maintain a city, and it's hard for people to understand that at times. But you have a great city here. You have one of the most popular cities in the state. We have a lot of people moving here. And by the way, I always say this, we have 3 other cities in this county, but you have to drive through the city to get to them. Wrightsville, Carolina, and Curie Beach. I always want to make certain that people understand that because on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday, if you go down there, you have 20 to 30,000 people on those beaches where they had to come through the city of Wilmington to get to them. They're putting pressure on our infrastructure. They're putting pressure on our parks. We ask people are telling us all the time, resurface courts, cut the grass, multitude of things that we're dealing with here as a community, 52 square miles that we represent. I know it's not easy. I know nobody wants to do it. I don't want to do it. But I also have a responsibility to the citizens of this community, as we all do, to make sure that the infrastructure is up to par, that we're keeping up with the growth rate that's happening not only in Wilmington, but the surrounding region, which is exploding in growth, and to making certain that our employees, the people that are here that serve us every day, are getting paid a fair salary and a fair wage based on what we have been told over the years through HR when we have to go back through and do this. When I look at the 14 cities that we compare ourselves to out of the 14 major cities in this state, we rank number 12. I think we've done a daggone good job in respect to keeping our tax rate as low as it can be. And we want to continue to do that because we don't want to drive people out of the house. But we also have a responsibility to make sure that we're making the adjustments necessary to keep up to date with everything that we're dealing with. This is a busy little place. I don't have to tell you folks that. And, you know, we've had 6 to 8 months to really dwell on this thing. I've taken it very seriously. I know we've had multiple meetings where we've gotten together. I've asked people for commentary. I'm fine with what you folks have done, and I applaud the staff for your thought process in this because you've dealt with us, you've heard from us all the time, and you hear from the citizens. We hear it all the time. I know you'll get guys get emails and calls. I need this fixed. I need these road conditions here. I need this traffic slowed down here. I need for you guys to fix this or do that. And it's frustrating when you have to tell a citizen, we'll get to you in 3 years based on the condition of the roads. You've heard that before. I can take you through a couple of streets where the neighbors have called me and I've gone out there. Literally, it looks like the moon. And we have somebody come down and tells us that the pavement still needs a little bit more wear before we can get to it. That's embarrassing. Nobody wants to see that. So I feel compelled that we need to move forward with this. Everybody will take the vote as they feel or deem necessary and how they feel. But I think that this budget, it was very well thought out. And to take the $1.8 million and to apply it toward the CIP is a smart thing. Let's take it also into consideration that we've got two bridges, one on 4th Street and one out on Pine Grove Road that need to be replaced at a cost of over $10 million. And if they're not replaced, 4th Street at some point in time is going to have to be closed because of the weight of the trucks that are going over it and the age of that infrastructure. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and I want to get you folks the necessary funding to get these projects done as fast as we can. So I appreciate all of your work, and I feel comfortable with the budget, as Mayor Pro Tem said, and I'm ready to move forward with it. Ms. Spears.
Yeah, I think everybody knows I'm a proponent of economic development, but also higher wages for our staff and for the people who work in our community. I've said that multiple times since I've been on council. I don't feel like we're losing people over $1 or $2. I think that's incorrect. But I also will ask, with what you just said, Mr. Mayor, with how many people come into our community to get to other places, other towns, what mechanism in this new budget captures money from outside people coming into our community? Is there one?
The only thing that we have that's available to us is parking revenue. And we have taken steps with this budget to move reserves from the parking fund into the general fund to pay back the general fund for debt that it has secured for the parking fund over the years. And we also have about, if I remember correctly, $250,000 that is coming over from the parking fund on an annual basis to be able to assist with maintenance of the downtown areas. So that is the only thing that we have. We don't control sales tax and the way it's distributed. We can't put up a gate, like we used to say at Wrightsville Beach. You don't want to put up a gate at the drawbridge. But the only thing we have been able to do is to move some of that money out of the parking fund and set up a continual annual contribution.
Right, but the mayor just gave this very compassionate, energetic spiel about who comes through our community. He didn't say anything about people coming through the community and parking. He said the people that are using the infrastructure to go other places to do, and that's true. Yeah, our infrastructure is, there are a lot of people coming through, right. The bridge was a perfect example of what happens. They're still just passing through. If they don't park, then what? They're just on the roads for free, right? Coming where? Coming to Wilmington to do what? Oh, to work.
It's a small pittance, but I will also say that the Powell bill does, any fuel bought in the city of Wilmington, a certain portion of that goes back to the city, but it's not worth probably even mentioning.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not knocking staff for anything that's raise related, merit related, anything that's capital improvement project related. But I'm really just saying, hey, just one more work session. Just think about it. But you know what? This is what we normally do. So let's just do what we do, and then. But when we come back and revisit it, you do know that I'm gonna let you know about it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Tony, just to be clear, and I think Councilmember Spears brings up a good point. He's asking a good question. In regards to not only the parking revenue that we receive, but we also get sales tax revenue. But unfortunately, what a lot of people don't understand, because unless you're in here and you delve into it, the state of North Carolina, which by the way, the county is an extension of state government, gives the county the right to determine how that sales tax revenue is distributed. So for example, in the city of, let's just say the county of New Hanover has got 239,000 people. You folks know this. They can do it by ad valorem tax, or they could do it by population. If we do it by population, we get 50% of the sales tax revenue. But the county has the right to choose to go with ad valorem taxes, which gives them almost 80% of the sales tax revenue, of which we're only collecting what? 12 cents, 15 cents out of every dollar that is spent here in the community. So it's unfair. It puts us in an unfair advantage. Plus, they get 60% of the property taxes. We get 40%. So we have very limited options as to how we can collect revenue to help sustain and maintain the city. And that's one of the dilemmas that we run into. They took away annexation in 2010, which was a way that cities use to take people in to help contribute to our budgets. when they lived, when the city became much more urban in nature, or county became much more urban in nature, but that went away. So we either have to work on a voluntary annexation or property taxes, sales tax revenue, and of course parking revenue. Of course, the rest of it is enterprise fund. So we're very limited into the scope of the amount of money that we're receiving to maintain this beautiful city. And I'm cognizant of the fact that nobody wants to pay taxes, nobody. But we also have a responsibility to try to make certain that we are keeping pace with the impacts that we are seeing in our community. And we carry a very large fund balance. And there's a reason for that, because of hurricanes. So we could carry up to $30-some million in our fund balance. That's a lot of money. But we have to keep it so that in the aftermath of a hurricane, we can get this city back on its feet quicker than most. We're still waiting for reimbursements from FEMA from 2018. So we have to put that money out before we receive it back. So we do a very good job conservatively in making sure that we have enough in reserves, that we have a good bond rating, a AAA bond rating, and that we're maintaining the integrity of the infrastructure and taking care of the people that take care of us every single day. So I know it's tough, and I appreciate everybody's commentary. I really do. But I feel that we have worked very hard to try to get to this point, and if there are small adjustments before the second reading, we can always make those adjustments. But I feel comfortable in what you have presented to us so far as a staff, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. White, I'm sorry.
I think I just need to level set a little bit, because there's this idea that maybe the proposal that I put forward adversely affects salaries of our staff, which we have some of the best staff we could possibly have. But my proposal, which you guys saw in May, not a single item affects the salary of the staff, and it allocates more money to infrastructure. I initiated that request to apply for federal government small bridge grants for those two, to replace those two bridges that you referenced. And it's my understanding those applications are going to be in November, so we may not even have this position that we're adding by the time this grant will be applied for. So I can't just advocate for growing the government just because we want to grow the government when we have money ready to be put towards these capital improvements that you're so well saying that we absolutely need. But since we're talking about capital improvements for a minute, maybe someone from engineering here, I don't know who can answer this, Mr. Manager, but are there any transportation bond projects, the 2014 transportation bond, are there any of those projects that are not out of design phase yet, that have not made it to right-of-way acquisition?
Tom?
Thomas, can you help us?
Thomas usually.
Question of whether or not there are any transportation bond projects that are either not in design, construction, or right-of-way.
No, they're not out of the design phase. So would they go from design to right-of-way acquisition? That's the.
It's. I'm only about 90% comfortable saying yes, all of them out of design. I'd like to have the document in front of me, and I know you want to rely on the information. I've seen it, but it's been 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I just do not have it to 100% memory. But I feel fairly confident it's the case for everything within the bond program in 2024 to be through design and moving into acquisition, as well as potentially going out for bid.
So there are some projects that are, you think there may be some projects that are not out of design yet, that are a decade old?
No, sir. What I'm saying is I'm 90% confident that I can say everything is out of design, but I'm not 100% confident without me pulling the document up. I'd rather have the source document report that back to you with confidence tomorrow.
Do we have that at our disposal here?
It's a ad hoc. We prepared that information before for the ad hoc transportation committee. I think that last meeting was April 18th, and I just do not recall.
There was something. That's what triggered this in my mind, and I think there was a Carolina Beach Road.
That is the one.
Is it beautification? What's the verbiage?
Carolina Beach Road, a streetscape enhancement.
And that
is
was burying
one.
some power lines
Right.
and doing, and that was in conjunction with a DOT project. And
Yes,
that
sir.
DOT project, I think, is let for construction in 2029.
2029, and our funds, so
$4.5
that one
million.
is by intention, you know, that we've not have it to that point, but, and I would exclude that project, because we went to council and told you that that was the situation with Carolina Beach Road, but the other projects that have been funded should be, all of them through design.
But that project's about $4.5 million,
Yes, sir.
right? All right, I think that's something to consider. And then, I mean, maybe before the next meeting, I know you don't have this in front of you, but projects that are in right-of-way, but they're not under construction, having an idea of that, because, I mean, just because a project is in right-of-way does not mean we need to go to construction, you know, right away, and there may be some.
Well, historically, and the city attorney's here, we've liked to have control over the property before you go ahead and execute contract documents. So you do want to have it, either going through condemnation or some way of control. But we can bring back that information. We have it very detailed for every project, working in conjunction with the city attorney's office, who's been fervently working on the land acquisition process for us.
And I apologize for not bringing that up sooner.
Yeah.
My little brain works slow, so.
Quite all right. I wish I could say 100% I'm confident, but I'd just rather be safe than sorry and get you that information this evening or first thing tomorrow morning.
Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, city manager, where did I hear the information that we are losing employees because they take jobs other places for $1 or $2 an hour more?
There are a number of anecdotal pieces of information that throughout, over the course of the past 5 years with the pandemic, and then of course coming out of that, as all of you know, we had both fire and police shortages. We have now gotten those vacancies down below 10%. Where we are hurting are in labor jobs that are associated with public works and associated with parks. And that's just a generalization for you. Some of those percentages are up over 20% in terms of vacancies. So we do have vacancies in those particular areas, and those are the ones that are prone to go for $1 an hour more. And I'll have to explain, please bear with me while I get a little granular with you, but they not only have to pay for their health insurance here, but then they also have to pay 6% of their salary towards the retirement fund. And so in terms of putting food on the table, $1 an hour more can seem like a lot of cash in someone's pocket. And then we are also having some problems with hiring in some of our mid-level managers, especially with regard to engineering. We've been out several times, and I can't tell you exactly how many. Clayton is with us, he could probably tell us. But essentially, we have been out a number of times searching for engineers, and there are other mid-level professionals that we are having trouble recruiting for.
Okay, thank you. I know I didn't
Yes,
just pull
sir.
that number out of thin air. All right, thank you, sir.
I didn't say you pulled that out of thin air. I just said I didn't believe it. And I still don't believe it. I don't care if Tony said it or not. Now, I'm just going to be honest, because that's where we are now. If Luke wants to stay to 12, damn it, I'm on now. Let's stay to 12. Let's just bang it out until 12 o'clock. I will say this. What would be believable is a person not taking a job with the city of Wilmington where they can work for somebody else for an extra $1 and have better benefits. That's a little more reasonable than what you just said, Mr. Manager. I don't see a person uprooting themselves from a company for $1 or more for just $1 or $2. Now, if they got $1 better and better benefits, and they didn't have to pay 6% of their salary, or they didn't have to pay for their health care, yes, they would. They would move on from the city of Wilmington. I don't blame them. If I find a job that's paying me $100,000 right now, I'm gonna move on from the city of Wilmington. Let's just be honest about it. So, Mayor Pro Tem, I didn't say you pulled that out of your hat. And you normally wear a hat, so you could have pulled it from your hat, but you don't have on a hat today.
Mr. Mayor, Clayton has a presentation that he had prepared for today. Frankly, I just did not think that we would necessarily need it with regard to turnover, but we certainly can if you'd like to see it. But it's all related to turnover.
I'm not gonna believe Clayton either. You're a nice guy, Clayton.
Okay.
There's no need, there's been no discussion about salaries or reducing salaries.
And I got one more thing, because Mr. Waddell did mention staff, and he did mention his proposals for the budget, and he didn't have a thing against staff, but you did offer to cut a whole department out.
Yep. Not reducing salaries, but to eliminate a department and eliminate, I guess now 2 positions. Potentially one could move over into HR though. We never dove into it that much. Didn't seem to take. So.
Yeah, all right. Okay? All right. Okay, Mr. Reinbark has made a motion. Second by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 4-3. Item 01B is the ordinance making appropriations to the grant projects, financial plans, enterprise funds, debit service funds, special tax district, and convention center fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024. What are the wishes of council in respect to the item?
Okay, is there no discussion on that?
Yeah.
Does this 1B, sorry if I'm a little disheveled, I came in late, you may have noticed. This includes Safe Light is in this one? No?
Yes.
Does? Okay. My proposal advocated for removing Safe Light program because that would put $230,000 back into the general fund, and we're the only city still in North Carolina utilizing that program. Raleigh terminated a program in 2023, Fayetteville terminated in 2022, and Greenville terminated a program in 2022 as well. If we were to remove that, I could vote for this ordinance, but otherwise, I cannot.
Mr. Reinbark.
What was the penalty for breaking this contract in the middle of the contract?
I do not recall the specific provisions. I had that at the budget workshop. My recollection is that the penalty would have exceeded the cost of we would have to pay for the program for the coming year. We have not had the opportunity to do, as I mentioned at the budget workshop, the deep dive on this program, on this particular program with regard to what were the penalties, what were the circumstances under which I believe Greenville was one of the questions, and Raleigh and Fayetteville got rid of their program. So we just haven't been able to get that information together to be able to get it back to you.
So, is that a wash? We don't know, do we? I mean,
is it a wash? What?
According to Mr. Waddell, it saved about 230,000. Is that what you said, Luke?
But if you have to pay the penalty per the contract, you would have to pay more for the penalty than you would.
And that was my comment. Is it a wash, or is it going to be more than over and above what we would save?
It's going to be over. It's going to be over and above.
And how many more years are left on this contract?
It is runs out June of 2025.
Yeah, Ms. Spears.
Seems like we could use more time to discuss it. Yeah. All right. It just points to everything that I'm saying. We're doing it in a vacuum. The things that we've already requested haven't even been done. We're going to make these hasty decisions to do what?
Okay, Mr. Barnett.
Isn't this the program that have statistically proven to save lives? That people literally don't rush through lights and all that kind of stuff?
The analysis that was done in-house by one of our staff members determined that there was no statistical value to be able to keep the cameras versus no cameras being located at the intersections. The police chief shared with you at the budget workshop that those cameras were used in many investigations that they conducted, anything from homicides to wrecks that were occurred at the intersections. If you want the analysis on what it will cost to get out of the program versus what it will cost to keep it, we certainly can do that before your second reading. The other things that you wanted to know were going to take longer in time, such as, could we replace the cameras with other cameras? What was it going to cost to replace those cameras? And you made doubly sure that the staff was to come back with a sound figure. There was also a constitutionality question that was raised, and I don't recall what else was raised, but there were a number of questions that were raised. We certainly can do the math for you on the penalty versus going through with it for the fiscal year, but the rest of those questions we certainly will not probably be able to answer in 2 weeks.
Okay. Mr. Joyner?
I understand that we don't have the answer to that question tonight. Is it not as simple as reading the contract and answering that question, or is it about having to prorate it? Is that why we don't have the answer?
It is as simple as reading the contract and making sure that the contractor does not agree to discontinue the contract. If both parties choose to discontinue the contract, then there is no penalty. And I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night. That's the reason I'm practicing law.
And, okay, and it expires within the next 2 years. I got it, thanks.
The reason I brought that up about how much it was is if it expires, if the sunset clause is next year, we don't pay any damn thing.
Yes, sir.
So why would we pay more to cancel it now? Why not leave it in place for one more year and let it die on the vine and we don't pay any penalty? Am I over?
That has been staff's position, but we did not go to the vendor and ask if they would voluntarily relinquish their rights under the contract at the same time, which would have done away with the penalty.
Now?
Now, yes, sir.
Well, can we do that?
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Thank you.
I mean, from my point of view, the aha moment was when the chief of police stood up before us and told us how many crimes he solved with the cameras, and if the camera system you were going to evaluate could be replaced with one of our camera systems or a new camera system, that we would possibly go ahead and let this thing expire. I like the fact that we have more eyes on the street because people are always telling us we need more police officers out there to protect us. So we have eyes out there that are helping us to solve crimes. And from my perspective, I saw the analysis that came forward from the young gentleman that presented at the city budget work session last time, but I was more impressed with what the chief shared with us, and I think everybody was. And from my point of view, if somebody's running down the road and has committed a crime and they can go on those camera systems, I think DA's office likes those things, I know. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I mean, if we're going to have that conversation, I'm in favor of finding out the answer to how much it would cost, A, to nullify this contract, terminate the contract early, B, find out how much it would cost to have the same amount of public surveillance for public roads in the city of Wilmington. I'm not comfortable at all with us having a civil penalty program where we are mailing people checks, or excuse me, we are mailing people bills that we all know the likelihood of being collected on, and then justifying that as a means to have surveillance in the city. If we want to have strong, meaningful, robust surveillance in the city, it needs to be because we prioritize that, not because we have a third party doing that and collecting $50 a hit.
I would just have to see what the cost would be to replace those cameras as opposed to what they have currently right now since those cameras are up. I would also ask if the school board as well as the county commissioners want to continue on with the program. That would be up to them. So I don't have a problem with letting it expire, as Mr. Rivenbark had alluded to. I think that makes common sense instead of us spending more money to eliminate them. But in the meantime, they're definitely helping us with crime, and that's more important to me personally. But everybody, I get your point. Ms. Spears?
Yeah, unlike the mayor, I can say I agree with his stance on this approach about Safe Light program, because $200,000 to save lives or to keep us not as safe as we could possibly be, but if it's helping solve crimes and we can pinpoint, $200,000 is nothing. And it's the same thing that I said in the workshop, in the work session. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And we haven't reached out. I'm not going to knock staff. I'm going to try not to. We haven't reached out to Safe Light. We haven't reached out to the county. We haven't reached out to the school system yet to restructure anything. We haven't done it. But I would feel really, really comfortable in keeping this in place, because you can't just go and take down these cameras and put new cameras up and create the type of IT technology that's needed and the city run it, and then, I mean, you just said it, we need more people to work in transportation and in the police department. So then what? What will we ask for next? I don't think you're looking far enough. I don't think you're really taking on what we're trying to do here, or what's being done. It's just in a vacuum. You guys seem so hasty to do something, and you're not really thinking about how it impacts more than just the 7 of us sitting here. And I mean, David, you work in public safety. That was your platform. You ran on it, public safety. Now it's like, oh, who cares because they want a $50 check? What if it saves a life? What if it saves lives? I mean, we got to do more than just talk, man.
Mr. Waddell?
I know for a fact that because the police chief told us this, that the Safe Light cameras do not integrate with the police department's larger camera system. And I think to advocate that they limp along on a system that's losing the city money because we don't want to put the right infrastructure in place for us to be able to solve crimes is a travesty. And I would go a little bit further to say that I bet if we were to utilize the entire motor vehicle tax revenue, instead of creating a new program and hiring more people, that would probably, new camera systems to replace those would be a transportation-related capital improvement. I may be wrong on that, but we'd have $2.25 million. We could probably get some nice cameras out of that budget. So I don't buy that argument.
And how long would they run? For a year? $1 point something million? Did you not look at the budget and how much the costs that are associated with technology cost the city? That probably run out maybe 6 months, unless you want to get cameras from Ollie's somewhere. I don't know. Maybe you got to hook up with cameras and the technology, the infrastructure that would be maintained and servers and all of that stuff for an entire city. That records in real time. But I don't know much about technology.
Okay. What are the wishes of council with respect to the item? We have a motion approved by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah. Passes 6-1. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item 01C, which is ordinance making appropriations to the capital projects funds for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024. What are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett, second by Councilmember Andrews. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 5-2. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item 01D, which is ordinance amending the various chapters of the City of Wilmington fee schedule for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024. What are the wishes of council in respect to item 01D? Mr. Spears, did you have a comment, sir?
I do. So it was in the fee schedule where I saw, I think this was the one, where if you were to rent the courts at Impey without the lights, it would be $25. And if you rented them with the lights, it would be $35. And I mean, I don't know the statistics for how many people rent basketball courts. I don't think it's really popular now, but at a period of time it was. But there has been, and Tom, you know this more than anybody, there have been many occasions where I've traveled throughout this community and the lights didn't work for the regular public. Not even if you were renting them, they just didn't work in general. So now that they do work, if somebody wanted to rent the courts, they have to pay $10 extra to have them. And, well, clearly, I shouldn't ask if we're okay with that, but I have an issue with that.
Okay.
But we'll just go through business as usual.
What are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Andrews, second by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item 02, which is ordinance to amend the Streets and Sidewalks Capital Projects Funds, the Parks and Recreation Capital Projects Fund, the Stormwater Capital Projects Fund, and the Debit Service Fund for the Limited Obligation Bond Series 2024. Any questions from council? We have 11.
Mr. Mayor, we have a brief presentation from the finance officer on this one for you.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. The ordinance before you tonight is related to the 2024A Series Limited Obligation Bonds that the city issued in April of 2024. The total issuance price was $31,985,330. The city received an all-in true interest cost rate of 3.64% for a 20-year term. Compared to last year's 2023A, we had 3.49% for $28 million, so we still seen a really good rate this year. The bonds were issued for various capital improvement projects for streets, streetscape, parks and recreation improvements, riverwalk improvements, and bulkhead repairs. The issuance also included a refunding of our 2014A series bonds, which resulted in savings for the city of $393,526. Staff recommends the passage of this ordinance to record the results of the 2024A series limited obligation bonds. Answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, sir, Mr. Waddell.
If we were to utilize the entire revenue, additional revenue that'll be generated by the motor vehicle tax, would that affect that budget impact in any way? This net budget of $11,455,822?
No, sir. This is, that net budget impact is recording the refunding of the 2014. So we have to amend our budget to add it in to refund it to us.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What are the wishes of council in respect to the item? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Andrews, second by Councilmember Rombart. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Andrews, second by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our resolutions. Item R1 is a resolution expressing support for H.R. 7922 to establish a water risk and resilience organization to develop risk and resiliency requirements for the water sector. At this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Waddell. Mr. Waddell?
I serve on the CFPUA with Councilmember Rivenbark, and the Executive Director, Ken Waldrop, brought this legislation to our attention. It's basically a resolution of support of this resolution, support for this HR 7922, establishes water risk resilience organization, develop risk and resilience requirements for the water sector. As you guys all know, you watch the news, you're well versed in what happens across the country. We're constantly under threat of cyber attack, and this is, I believe, goes to address that. I understand the Chief Information Officer for the CFPUA, Cord Ellison, is here and could probably answer any questions as to how this may affect our organization if there's further questions from council. And I appreciate him being here.
Okay. All right. Okay. We make the motion. We have a motion by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. This concludes the regular agenda. Are there any items be brought forward by our city attorney?
No, sir.
City manager?
Mr. Mayor, just a reminder that you'll be meeting on Friday morning on the 12th floor of Skyline Center for your legislative breakfast.
Okay, very good. Madam Clerk, Mr. Joyner, Mr. Waddell, Mr. Barnett.
The month of June, major things are happening. Kids are out of school. The kids that go to traditional school, they'll get out tomorrow, half a day, and those who are attending year-round will be attending until Friday, half a day. Just try to find things for kids to do during the summer. I worry a lot about kids during the summer because Idle Minds Devil's Workshop, they have 8 hours they were safely in school. Those 8 hours now, they're going to be free to do stuff, and so we just need to make sure that we're providing wholesome things for the kids in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Mr. Rivenbark.
Yes, three items. One, I noticed that the Chamber of Commerce released their list of people today, and Miss Rachel LeCaux, Miss Catherine Thurston, Aubrey Parsley, and there's a fourth one that I don't think I know, but do you know who that was?
Yeah. Mr. Lee, Michael Lee.
Michael Lee, and actually it's Rebecca Thurston, who's in the fire department.
Oh, Rebecca Thurston. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, congratulations. Secondly, my grandson, Grayson, is graduating Friday night. He grew up in the school system here, and Winter Park School is having all of the kids that are graduating that went all the way through from K, whatever they call it, through the 6th grade or 5th grade to be at Winter Park School in the morning. They're going to walk up and down the halls with their cap and gown on. I'll be there with him. And also, there's two new faces up here that haven't had the opportunity to do what we don't do often enough, in my opinion. I'd like to have you all plan a joint planning commission meeting with the city council. We've done that before, and I think it's worthwhile to see face-to-face the people that vet everything that we eventually get and do a yeoman's job. I put them right up there alongside us. So if we could do that sometime in the near future, I'd sure appreciate it, and I hope everybody else would see the good, the benefit in it. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sanders?
Mr. Mayor and council and audience, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, in conjunction with the North Carolina State Ports Authority this week, is holding virtual workshops on the dredging of the Cape Fear River to the port and all of the information on environment and benefits, resources. They're going to be doing an in-person meeting from 3 to 7 p.m. on June 13th at Sunset Park Elementary School. And all of this information is, the easiest way to find it is because the website for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is really long, but if you go to coastalreview.org, you can get all that information on the workshops. I attended one today, and it was a lot of good information.
Thank you. Mr. Spears?
Yes, sir. Congratulations to all the graduates. I got 3 little special graduates. My niece Joelle graduated from kindergarten today. She's off to the big world of first grade in August. Of course, my daughter graduated kindergarten last Friday. I took her to work with me yesterday. I don't think she likes work too much. It's too long for her. And my niece Aria graduates tomorrow. She'll be off on her way to middle school, so I will be there. But Councilman, Mayor Pro Tem Barnett did speak. You know, kids will be out for the summer. We need to find something very productive for them to do, not just allowing them to run. We want them to have fun, but we also want them to be responsible and be representative of us as parents and citizens of this great community, well, potentially great community. I say that with
Great
an
community.
asterisk.
Great.
Asterisk beside it. And that's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. First, I just want to say to the staff, what you folks did with the New Hanover Veterans Council with Don Betts and putting up those placards on those street lights with the different veterans that have come from this community or have served this country in different capacities was outstanding. And I know that there were some issues and what have you, but you worked through them. And the veterans really appreciate it, the Veterans Council really appreciate it, but really the citizens, the amount of calls and folks that have said that was just a great idea. I just want to say congratulations. You guys did a great job in putting those up, and I just want to say thank you. It looks great. If you haven't been down Water Street to see them and around town, it's phenomenal. Thank you very
Big
much.
shout out to Dylan. He had a big
Dylan,
hand.
that's right, Dylan, you did it, and I really appreciate that, Dylan. Great job. Appreciate it. He's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. You don't see him, but he's right there. Finally, I just want to say to my 3 nephews that are all graduating, just graduated, congratulations, job well done, on to your next phase in life, and that's John Martin, and that's William, and that's Aiden. So congratulations, guys. Anyway, with that, thank you for taking interest in your government. We stand adjourned.